Have you ever stopped to wonder why you pick one brand over another, even when, let's be honest, the products are pretty much the same? It's almost never just about logic or the price tag. It's about a feeling. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the science of how brands create that magic. We're moving way beyond just selling stuff and into the world of creating these unforgettable emotional connections. I mean, think about it. Apple, Nike, maybe that one coffee shop you'll go out of your way for. Yeah, sure, they sell computers and shoes and coffee, but what are we really buying? It's something else entirely, right? It's a connection, a vibe, a feeling of belonging that's, well, it's kind of magical. So the big question is, how on earth do they do it? To get to the bottom of that magic, we first have to understand a huge shift in how marketers even think about us, the consumers. It all started when they began to look beyond pure cold logic. So for the longest time, the prevailing wisdom was that we're all just logical problem solvers. We have a need, we look at the features, we weigh the pros and cons, and we make a smart, rational choice. But then, back in the early 80s, a couple of researchers, Holbrook and Hirschman, came along and said, hang on, that's not the whole story. They argued we're actually emotional consumers, driven by our feelings and this constant search for symbolic meaning. They broke it all down into what they called the 3 Fs. They said that a huge chunk of what we buy isn't about solving a practical problem at all. It's about chasing fantasies, feelings, and just plain fun. And you know what? This seemingly simple idea totally changed the game. It really paved the way for a whole new way of thinking about business. And that massive shift from logic to feelings, well, it set the stage, literally, for our first big concept, the experience economy. This is the idea that business isn't just business, it's theater. A couple of consultants, Pine and Gilmore, they mapped out this whole evolution of value. It's pretty cool. See, we started in the agrarian era, just trading basic commodities, like coffee beans. Then we moved to the industrial era and started manufacturing those beans into tangible goods. After that came the service era, where we delivered those goods as a service, like brewing you a cup of coffee. But today, the real value, the premium stuff, comes from staging a memorable personal experience around that coffee. Think about the entire vibe of a place like Starbucks. And that right there is the heart of the experience economy. It's all about intentional, deliberate design. The service becomes the stage, the actual product is just a prop, and the whole goal is to forge a deep, personal connection with you, the customer, or maybe the audience. So Pine and Gilmore broke this down into 4 different realms of experience. The first one is entertainment. This is pretty simple. It's when you're just passively taking it all in, absorbing the experience. Like kicking back and watching a show on Netflix. Next up is the educational realm. Here, you're still absorbing stuff, but the big difference is that now you're an active participant. You're leaning in, asking questions, and you're actually involved in your own learning process. Then things get really interesting with the third realm, escapist. This is where you don't just absorb the experience, you're fully immersed in it. You're an active player shaping what happens. Think about playing a VR game or something totally intense like skydiving. And finally, we have the aesthetic realm. Here, you're immersed in a powerful environment, but you're more of a passive presence. You're not really influencing what's going on. You're just there, soaking it all in, kind of like when you get lost in the feeling of a beautiful art gallery. Okay, now here's the really cool part, the sweet spot. This is where the true magic happens. The brands that create the most powerful, most memorable experiences are the ones that can blend all 4 of these realms together. The classic example is Nike Town. It's an aesthetic space, right? But you also learn about athletes. That's educational. You're entertained by all the cool displays. And you can escape by trying on the gear and imagining yourself on the court. It's a store, a museum, and a playground all rolled into one. So if the experience economy is the big stage, what are the actual tools the directors, the marketers are using? Well, that brings us to a really practical framework called experiential marketing. And it's really, really important to get the difference here. In the experience economy, the product is the experience you're selling. But with experiential marketing, a concept from a guy named Bernd Schmidt, the idea is that the process of marketing a normal product is what creates the experience. Schmidt basically gave marketers this awesome 5-part toolkit. You can create an experience through sense, appealing to sight, sound, smell, you name it. Through feel, by tapping directly into our emotions. Through think, by making us curious or surprising us. Through act, by showing us a different way to live. And finally, through relate, by connecting a single person to a whole community or culture. Now, out of all those tools, especially in that feel category, there is one emotion that is so unbelievably powerful it really deserves its own spotlight: nostalgia. Our deep, complicated connection to the past. See, nostalgia isn't just a simple, happy memory. Its real power comes from the fact that it's bittersweet. It's that perfect mix of warmth and joy for something that was, combined with a little pang of sadness you can't ever get it back. That tension is just incredibly potent for marketers. And this quote absolutely nails the trigger. We feel nostalgia most strongly for stuff that was all around us when we were young, during our formative years. The sights, the sounds, the brands from that time get kind of hardwired into our identities. Now, marketers can tap into two different kinds of nostalgia. First, there's personal nostalgia. That's all about your specific life, your first car, that candy bar you loved as a kid. But then there's also communal nostalgia, which is this shared longing for a bygone era, like the 80s or the 90s, that a whole generation feels at the same time.
So, how do brands actually put all of this together in the real world? They use this incredibly smart strategy that mashes up nostalgia with modern cool. It's called retro branding.
Retro branding is all about bringing back a classic, but, and this is key, it's not a perfect carbon copy. It's about reviving the spirit of the original while giving it a major update for today. The absolute poster child for this is the relaunch of the Volkswagen Beetle. And a successful retro brand really needs these 4 ingredients, the 4 A's. It needs a great story, that's the allegory. It needs to tap into an idealized community, the Arcadia. Think of the Beetle and its connection to 60s flower power. It has to have an authentic soul, its aura. And finally, it has to embrace antinomy, this paradox of being both old and new, retro and high-tech, all at the same time. And that paradox, that's the whole secret sauce. Retro brands really do give us the best of both worlds. They feel fresh and unique, but they also bring that wonderful comfort, familiarity, and trust of something we feel like we've known our entire lives. It's excitement and security, all in one awesome package. So there you have it. From seeing us not as logical robots, but as emotional beings, to staging entire theatrical experiences, to tapping into our deepest memories, that's the playbook for how brands create magic. And it all leads me to one last question for you to think about. What brand from your past do you think truly deserves a comeback?